I have my sermon written out. I think it's the first time I've done that. It's a sign that I'm growing old. A lot of you were here last week to help me celebrate my 81st birthday. Well, I really like this one because when I'm asked now, I can say, well, I'm almost 80, and I can say it with cheer. Now, you're probably old if you've ever used a skate key, no? And if you don't know what that is, you're probably young, okay? Or if you used to say far out, or don't have a cow, man. See, my kids have heard those things and they think, wow, they're really dumb. So there are these signs, you know. Random hair growth, that's really special, you know. You go to brush away a little hair on your cheek and you find out it's attached to your ear. Okay, so the main one is is growing old for you a concept that you consider once in a while, or is it an experience that you have regularly? Okay. This is the first time I've been old. I mean, that's the thing. You don't get time to practice. You don't have a chance. And I have all those concerns that people have we don't talk about. Concerns about the unknown, fear of the unknown, fear of losing control, especially of our future, fear of losing identity. Who am I now with this? So I think we need to begin to really, for once, consider the questions that are always in the air, but we don't really feel that we have to answer them seriously. We'll do it when we get around to it, right? Well, today you're in luck. If you look at the cover of your bulletin, everybody here now has a round to it. David told me that joke. So what's the meaning of life? You know, what's the meaning of this? Young people, if you're young, they ask, why is this happening to me? I have to figure that out. If you're old, you say, how did I create this? Okay? The meaning of life is to give life meaning. We don't find it, we create it. It's on us. Okay? What do you believe happens after death? Okay, well, we don't know. I worked in hospice for 20 years, and my experience was most people approach all these questions and approach the process in the same way that they approached life. They die the way they lived, you know. Whatever worked for you with that problem, well, that's how I'm going to approach this problem. So it's not about knowing, it's about what do you suspect? What's your hunch? Because how you answer that is going to have a great deal of influence on how you experience whatever actually does happen. Okay? So I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that there really isn't any good news. Okay? Most of us are identified with our body and our brain. That's who we are. Okay? And if that's what you identify with, well, when you grow old, that will become diminished and decline and wither and become uncomfortable. You'll just experience continuous loss. Life is hard, and then you die. That's a pretty depressing frame of reference. Okay? We're all living longer now. I mean, we're told we're going to live to be 100, some people will live to be 140. Okay, but that's the body. The problem is the brain ages faster than the body. So there's this gap. and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So, we're discovering a greater incidence of all these mental disease process, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, MS, and the most common one is dementia. Over half the people in America over the age of 85 have measurable dementia. It's natural that you would be concerned. Now, you may not be concerned about getting dementia because you have it. That's one of the signs. You know, it's not really a problem, though, until words reversed in sentences you hear. I'm just messing with you, okay? Okay, so fortunately, science can tell us the three most important factors to avoid or delay dementia. So listen up. Number one, don't grow old, okay? Maybe obvious, but that's the most important factor. Number two, don't be female. Now, I realize that might be a challenge for some of you, but that is the second most important factor. And number three, choose your parents carefully. Okay? After that, we're on our own. Okay? So, we're here in church. Does religion help? And I've been fortunate to have been with more than a dozen, let's say about 16 people who were suddenly really confronting a terminal diagnosis or dying, who were lifelong ministers. And out of that group, only 2 wanted our conversation to be conducted in theological language. And the rest of them use the same garden variety concerns, questions, and answers that we do. So my interpretation of that is that religious concepts or beliefs, just as beliefs, aren't really that helpful when the rubber meets the road. Okay. On the other hand, a faith that's been lived and embodied and adopted sincerely is powerful reassurance. And I always remember old Hattie McDaniel was a new admission to hospice, and I'm in her room. She was from Mississippi, spent her entire life in daycare, was a caregiver, and now she's dying, and in a rather shabby little facility. And I'm there to see if she wants to sign our DNR form, do not resuscitate. I explained the form. And she said, well, if the good Lord calls me, then I know I have a place. But if I'm down here messing around with you all, then I'm not sure I have a place. So if that time comes, you just let old Hattie go. You know, that's a spiritual person. That's a person who cares more, trusts more in their faith, and cares more about that than their body. The other thing that happens when you grow old, like in this church, is my whole cohort, a lot of my friends are growing old at the same time, you know. It's my milieu. Most of us relate a lot to people around our same age, and so every year I have 2 or 3 people who are getting very sick. I have 2 or 3 people who are getting a terminal diagnosis. I have 2 or 3 people who die. It's a whole environment. I may become a caregiver. You know, my mother was in a facility when COVID hit, and so I became the sole, I had to take her out, became the sole full-time caregiver. It's a lot like taking care of an infant or a toddler. I mean, it's 7 by 24. So for people in your group, let's say who are in the hospital, or anytime you get a chance, take the opportunity to go visit. And I have friends who say, well, I want to go visit, but I don't know what to say. Don't rehearse this. You're not going there to say something. You're going there to listen, to be present, to give them your undivided, non-anxious, non-judgmental attention. That's all that they need. And people who are especially in the dying process, may see non-living beings in the room, okay? It's a common experience whether you believe in that stuff or not, okay? The main thing I want to say is do not correct them. Do not say, oh, it's okay, there's nobody there. What do you mean there's nobody there? I can see them, they're right there. You know, it's like, it's not about you, and it's not about scientific rationale. Maybe the problem is with us. What's wrong with me that I can't see a non-living being, right? Most of these people are not family members, Uncle George or Aunt Mary. Most of them are strangers, and most of them are perceived as a benign presence, okay? So tell me about them. What are they like? How do you feel? You know, that's how you just engage their humanity where they are. So the teaching today is consider the lilies of the field and the birds of the air. Well, who's the audience for that teaching? At the time, 95% of the people are rural peasants. They're agricultural. And their association would be, well, lilies and birds, they're really pretty, and they don't live very long. That's the teaching, okay? So, life is uncertain, but none of the options look very good. So what's the good news here? Well, the good news is that there really isn't any bad news, okay? This being human is the best ride in the universe. There's a price of admission. You just pay it at the end, okay? The painful part is not losing your physical life. The painful part is the separation, losing the relationships that you have. It's all about relationship. I never had a single person in 20 years who said, you know, I just wish I made another $10,000 a year, you know? It's all about relationships. But this isn't really news. You've known it all along. This is the deal, okay? So we don't know how much time we have, but we know it's finite. And so you have to kind of have an idea. What do you think? Okay, I figure, I'm planning, I have about 12 years left. That's halfway between my father's age of death and my mother's age of death. That's 624 weeks. Seems like a big number, but when you go 624, 623, 622, 621, this has a way of focusing my attention and making me more realistic. What do I really need to accomplish in the time that I have left? Okay, the good news is, well, I'm not dead yet. You know, I have some time. The problem is not that time is limited. The problem is we waste so much of it on things like worry, which accomplishes nothing. Drop it, okay? So my purpose now is to prepare for death, which is time-honored. Egyptians did that. Hindus do that. Tibetans do that. Taoists, I mean, it's part of the culture, but it's not planning an event. It's considering, including the reality of these facts so that I live each day more fully. That's the purpose. That's the point. Live in the present moment. The best way you can take care of the future is by taking care of the present. Okay? So I'm not worried about growing old. I'm invested in old growing. That's my new thing, old growing. How do I grow now in this my new change of circumstances? When you're young, you're interested in the world. You're finding out about everything. I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter. Look, a stick. It's amazing. Look, you can beat on it. You can poke things. It's amazing. That sense of purpose. And it's all about exploring and getting and having and maintaining. And you bloom. Okay? Now, when you're growing old, it's all about letting go. You're going slower. You're not as active as you were before. You're losing things. You wither. And they're both beautiful. They're just different. Okay. And so I spend more time now looking inside than looking outside. Okay. The interior landscape is so vast and interesting and surprising, far more than this entire planet. Now, if you approach looking inside by scrutiny and judgment and rumination and getting caught up in habitual fixations, well, that's just a very limited and limiting practice, okay? And your explanation won't be vast, it'll only be half vast. Okay, so here's my way. Here's how I do it. Works for me. Everyone is different, you know, may not work for you. You may have a different way, but here is my way. How do I do that? The big one, the first one, the big step is to shift my identification from my body and brain, let's call it body-brain, from my body-brain to my mind and my soul. Much bigger. The mind cannot be reduced to the brain, okay? Like Hattie McDaniel, you know, shift it to my spiritual awareness. I have a body. It's like my car. It's a vehicle. It gets me where I want to go. I have to take care of it. But even when I do take care of it, it still like wears out, right? Okay, it's in better or worse condition. But my spiritual awareness never gets old. It doesn't wither. It doesn't die. It doesn't run out of gas. It's always present. It doesn't even sleep. It's present at night. I have dreams. It's present even when I'm not aware that I'm dreaming. So I think that one thing about this approach is I was conditioned a little bit. I'm helped out a little bit because twice in my life I was basically bedbound for months. And I was off, you know, I couldn't do anything. So I had a lot of experience and like, guess what? You don't die. Awareness is always there. So let me talk about two people, two chaplain stories. I've been with, I don't know how many, a number of people who were in comas, and then they came out of their coma, and I asked them, you know, we were in your room several times with family, loved ones, staff, a doctor if you're lucky, talking about your plan of care and your condition and prognosis, and I was just curious, you know, were you aware of that what we were talking about? And they said, almost a consensus, that no, I wasn't aware of what people were saying, but I was exquisitely sensitive to whether I was included in the conversation. Was I being talked about like some object, some thing that has no thoughts or feelings, and you're just talking about that? Or was I spoken of and included as a sentient, caring, feeling being who's just not speaking at that time? So what happens is when you cut back on activity, on doing and thinking and verbalizing and describing, that opens up space for your spiritual awareness. Spaciousness, emptiness is not empty, okay? Another story is I was a new unit, 2 South, I won't say the hospital, but this was a unit where people were just kept alive, you know. People think that, well, you know, you die when the heart stops. Well, nowadays, we can keep the heart going. It's a muscle. We have machines, we have drugs, okay? Same thing for the lungs. But you die when the brain stops, okay? So these people are kept alive. I think longer, I didn't like that unit because a lot of people were there because there was some document, some clause, they're all conserved, and they're there for years. But there's somebody somewhere, as long as they're alive and they're the conservator, they get paid. That's the sad truth of that unit. But I went there to visit somebody, and I came into the room, and she wasn't there. What? Where did she go? Oh, I talked to some, not a nurse, but an LVN, said, oh, they just took her down the hall just left for a procedure. So I go down the hall, and I see the gurney, and they're headed towards some elevator, those big staff elevators that gurneys go on, and I caught up and said hello, and this is who I am, and I wonder if you would like a prayer. She just is looking straight ahead, eyes are open, and so I give a prayer, you know, praying for the God's hands will help the hands of the people doing whatever procedure it was, and the bell rang and the doors opened and they started to go, and she said, "Thank you." I went back to the nurse's station to chart my visit, and I told them this story, and their jaws dropped. She hasn't spoken in 3 years. My thoughts about that later was, I'll bet in 3 years nobody really said anything that addressed her needs and her condition and where she was. Hospitals are a lot more like assembly lines and factories than people realize. You know, everybody has a job and they just do their job. But I was addressing her condition, and so that sentience and capacities they're far more present than what we think from just looking at their condition. That's been my experience. So, invest in spiritual awareness. So who am I then? What's my identity in this situation? Well, I'm not identified with the house. I'm the front door, okay? I'm the front door without a door. I'm just an aperture. I'm, you know, coming out of the house, our thoughts, words, actions from my experience, from what I've done, knowledge I've accumulated, or from my unconscious patterns, that's all coming out. And what's coming in are people talking to me, events that happens, getting stuck in traffic, and I'm just sitting, watching this stuff go through, okay? I'm aware of it, but I'm not identified with it. And I'm not entangled with it, but I am aware of it. Okay, now, some of these practices are very common. Any monk would know these practices, but it takes a while to kind of get there. But I'm just sharing with you what it's like, how to actually be proactive and intentional about exploring inner space. Watch your mind. Watch your mind. Just notice, instead of saying, I'm thinking right now, just notice, oh, thoughts are happening. They're going by, okay? And then once you do that, it's just a small step to, instead of watching the thoughts go by, to noticing the noticing itself. Become aware of awareness. You see, there's a lot that can be done here, and it's fascinating. And all the while, remain open to possibilities, okay? We live in this physical world of space and time. Well, the world's a lot bigger than that. You know, quantum mechanics is up to, 7, 8 dimensions that we do not experience. but that are real. We get glimpses all the time. Synchronicity, deja vu, precognition. I mean, these are common experiences of the unseen world. Okay, so just wait with your eyes open and wait expectantly, and you will be amazed. A mind that opens to a new idea never goes back to its original size. Okay, so in this practice, what am I discovering? I'm discovering that I'm getting younger every day. I'm more open to wonder. I'm more amazed. It's fantastic. I'm just like my 2.5-year-old grandchild. Life is wonderful. It's just about internal things, not about the external things. Remember, a lot of people who remember Susie Stone. Oh, old College Heights person. And I was having lunch with her in Santa Fe. She retired to Santa Fe in the plaza down there, just having lunch, talking about the turquoise bracelets. And out of the blue, out of nowhere, she says, you know, I just can't get over how every day is so different. Just like my granddaughter. Now, this is a person who's getting younger all the time. Okay. I find that I'm becoming less attached in the sense of less entangled, but that helps me be more in contact. I'm more present because I'm not coming with an agenda. I'm not coming with, well, is this person entertaining or not? What do they want from me? What can I get from them? All of that's not there, so I could just be in contact, just be connected. And in that connection, when I am with people, if there's something that needs to be reconciled, do it, you know. I'm sorry that ask to be forgiven. Offer forgiveness. You need to be sorry that, you know, but reconcile that. And tell them what you're grateful for. And be specific. Not like, I've always been grateful for you. Okay, great. For what? You know, be specific. If you're not with the ones you love, then love the ones you're with. Okay? And in that contact, in this real world, I'm also more in contact with the transcendent, with the unseen. I can feel it, I can taste it. I have a sense of that. It's present all the time, unseen. That's exciting. Okay. And so I'm more connected with people as individuals. Maybe I'm more connected with this group. But then it's a small step to be more connected with all people. All people are connected. That's oneness. We are all one. We are all just little apertures in a web, Indra's web. And that is somehow so reassuring and fulfilling. And I'm much more open to just say something to the person in the checkout line at Safeway. And if you open up to people, they'll open up right back. They just sense your openness and presence. So I'm going to close with just 2 quotes. One is on this topic, Cynthia Bourgeault, is that how you say it? It's got a lot more consonants and vowels than that. When the field of vision has been unified, the inner being comes to rest. And that inner peace flows into the outer world as harmony and compassion. It goes right through the door and right through their door. It's a wonderful thing. And the last quote is, I'll just say it. Some of you might know who said it, but you only live once. But if you do it right, once is enough. Anyone know who said that? Mae West. And if you know who Mae West is, you're probably old. Okay, let's say amen to that.